Okay, hello. This lesson is my sixth lecture in my series on the South China Sea, and we're going to focus on this question: does the South China Sea imbroglio slash conflict have the potential for another bullshit Cold War? All right, absolutely, especially if it is not analyzed properly and then over exaggerated. First, China is not the only rule breaker, but it is a principal rule breaker slash troublemaker, stirring up conflict and contention in the South China Sea. So USA has two main concerns. One, China will restrict shipping in the South China Sea, cutting off $5.3 trillion of annual commerce. Right, that's been pumped up in the media. Two, China will grab all the resources in the South China Sea. That's a separate lecture. We're going to focus on this today. Right. All right. Freedom of navigation in the South China Sea and the threat to commerce. How, how serious is the threat? So, freedom of navigation is vital for commerce and thus for the world economy. Freedom of navigation is protected by the United Nations Convention on Law of the Seas, or UN CLOS. The media often states that $5.3 trillion worth of trade, and this is a high estimate that I've seen. I've seen lower estimates. Well, we'll just take it. $5.3 trillion worth of trade passes through the South China Sea annually and is at risk of being cut off by China. Is that threat realistic or is it hyped up bullshit? According to the UN clause, free navigation cannot be obstructed in any waters, territorial seas, contiguous zones, exclusive economic zones, continental shelf, or high seas, except with the following limitations. Within territorial seas, passage must be innocent. Within contiguous zones, ships must abide by the coastal states' laws, regulations, custom navigation lanes, and rules. Blah, blah, blah. That stuff. U.S. law holds the right to board and seize drug trafficking ships beyond the contiguous zone. So we say we got sovereignty beyond that for this special purpose, right? And the dumb, damn drug dealers, stop them. All right. China's violations of freedom of navigation include wrongfully requiring permission to pass through their territorial seas. This is not part of the UN clause. To be fair, Taiwan and Vietnam does the same. Wrongly using those spratly features, which are artificial islands or uh, low tide elevations to demarc territory seas and contiguous zone, and then imposing innocent passage requirements within 12 nautical miles and sovereignty within 24 nautical miles. All right. Wrongly drawing straight baselines around the parasol features, especially where they cross into Vietnam's EEZ. That's a violation of UN clause. Wrongly requiring innocent passage in their EEZs, right, which is 200 nautical miles, in order to block military surveillance and intelligence gathering, which the UN clause permits everywhere except within territorial seas, 12 miles from baseline. All right, the media exaggerates, making it sound like China is threatening to completely block navigation. They are not. China is only wrongfully attempting to impose four bogus added requirements to navigation within its territorial seas, contiguous zones, and exclusive economic zones. Right, so it's typical media hype. The USA intentionally ignores China's bogus requirement with its freedom of navigation operations and overflights by surveillance aircraft. Right, we just ignore their stupid, baseless, false requirements and just plow through. What would China gain from enforcing their false limitations? A, they cannot obstruct navigation in any water zones so long as it is innocent and not violating their laws. Right? What is China trying to gain from demanding permission to pass through their territorial seas, which are only 12 nautical miles from baseline? Right? If it's an island, that would be 24 nautical miles diameter. So if it's an island out here, you got all around 360, 12 miles on all sides, which is 24 nautical miles plus the width of these little islands, which aren't much. Uh, the South China Sea, on the other hand, is 500 to 600 nautical miles wide. So their territory seas pose little obstacle. Within 24 miles, they can enforce their rules, laws, but if ships don't break the laws, what will China get from that? If China imposes unreasonable laws, the continuous zones are also easy to bypass, given that, South China Sea is 500 to 600 nautical miles wide. Right? Just go around it. May cost a little more fuel, but hell, you already paid a lot in fuel already. All right. Within 24 nautical miles, they can enforce their rules. Oh, I just read that. The most China can hope to gain is the wrongful requirement of innocent passage in their EEZs, which is hard to bypass since EEZ extends 200 miles from baseline, which can mean up to 400 nautical miles diameter around an island. But that rightfully includes only Hainan until there's a ruling on the parasols. Right? So that is 200 nautical miles outside of Hainan, or the parasols. Parasols are about here. Right? Now, if they try to apply this to one of their features in the Spratlys, I mean, that could be a problem because you got 200 nautical miles all around, right? That's 400 nautical miles. That covers most of Spratlys. So imposing innocent passage requirements there, right? Mostly affecting just military intelligence gathering and whatnot. Okay. All right. So if China applies this to their open water features, for example, the Spratlys, that could encompass a 400 nautical mile diameter, which is nearly the width of the entire South China Sea. However, the 2016 Hague ruling declared that the Spratlys do not demark EEZ or continental shelf, right? So they don't have a right, even if they say, "Oh, we can apply it to our E." Well, you got no EEZ out here, all right? But of course, China rejects the Hague ruling. Also, they don't follow the laws; they just do whatever they want, right? And innocent passage does not apply to the EEZ, right? All right. So, innocent passage really imposes no additional restrictions to merchant shipping other than no flushing sewage tanks as you're passing through territorial seas or dumping trash, right? And no loading or unloading contraband inside their contiguous zone. Even if China could impose innocent passage in the EEZ, what advantage is that going to give China? Oh, we can't dump our trash, or we can't load or unload contraband, right? Like drugs or whatever. I don't know. So here are the innocent passage requirements in the UN clause, right? They talk about things like weapons. You can't use weapons. You can't gather intelligence, disseminate propaganda, launch a land aircraft. I mean, merchant ships aren't doing any of this. Land or take on military devices. So this is possible. Load or unload any commodity, currency, person, contrary to customs. That's contraband, right? So you can load or unload anything that's legal, except anything that is contrary to Chinese customs. And you can't willfully pollute, right? You can't fish, but merchant shipping passes, they're not going to be fishing. Come on. All right, they're not going to do any of this stuff other than possibly pollute, right? All right. So, what could China do to enforce their bogus limitations? Right? I said they can do three things here. One, they could take violators to court. However, the rules of the UN clause are explicit, so China's bogus interpretations would be laughed at and then thrown out of court. Kind of like a Trump election fraud case, right? Every single damn one thrown out of court, no substance, right? So I got a picture of Trump here, right? You know how he combs his hair in this kind of like loop that forms like a brim of a hat or like a bill of a cap? Comes out here. You ever notice that? Wonder why he does that. Like he's trying to get some extra shade or something. China uses intimidation by intercepting and bumping ships and aircraft. First, harassment will not stop ships or planes unless severe damage occurs. So just keep going. Just plow through. Bump them, whatever. Just keep going. Screw them, right? I think make them have to sink you. If they want to stop you, make them have to sink you. And then if they do, then blow it up in the press into a big international incident, right? Give it a lot of press. And then, if there's 2 or 3 sinkings, that would be a clear pattern, which would provoke outrage and threat. And then China would face sanctions. I think they would get close to the threshold where USA or EU would start pulling the trigger on sanctions. And China would be screwed hard. For doing what? Getting to bump ships? Second, every time they do that, every time they make an aggressive encounter, especially bumping, that should be videotaped and then taken to court to demand payment for damages and mostly to compile a record of proven bad behavior. Will you get them? I don't know if they'll pay it, but you try to get them to pay for the damages. At least you get that on record. China could block, board, and seize all ships violating their bogus restrictions, but this would be a naval blockade, right? That would pose a serious economic threat to all nations whose commerce transits the South China Seas, and that would rally the formation of coalitions and alliances against China. That's a serious threat to the whole damn economy of a country. China would thus forge a united front of nations lined up against itself, which is just stupid. That's anti-strategic. There is no better unifier than a common threat / enemy. All right. A Chinese blockade will likely rally an international response, and navies across the world could converge on the South China Sea to provide naval escort for merchant shipping and to patrol fishing waters. Convoys could be organized to more efficiently use naval escorts. The formation of convoys can be simplified by announcing in advance standard rally points and times. When are you going to form up and when are you going to take off? All right. Blocking, boarding, and seizing ships is only permitted to stop violations of laws within sovereign waters, like your contiguous zone. That does apply to the EEZ, but only in terms of resources, right? So most of the laws are enforced within the contiguous zone. Anything else is an act of war. China would thus risk high costs of war. To get what? For the chance to gain little. The following are some of these costs. All right. So there's going to be some big costs. All right. First of all, If China attempted to blockade shipping, then turn around as fair play and their shipping could be blocked. This would hurt China far more because they are exceedingly dependent on South China Sea shipping, especially compared to USA, UK, India, Australia, France, Japan. Remember those, a bunch of nations that could be involved here? All right. For example, USA. I mean, just a fraction of U.S. shipping goes through the South China Sea. Maybe let's say it's 50%. Right? It's probably not that much. China is heavily dependent upon it. Right? And if they throw up a blockade in the South China Sea, I throw up a blockade in the East China Sea as well. So you cut off all China's maritime access. Right? Their maritime commerce is cut off. I'd screw them that way. Right? They're going to throw up a blockade here. Man, blockade the whole damn coast here. China will lose the most. China will lose the costly naval contest to superior combined forces. Below is a list of applicable naval forces. All right. So, in the first column on the left there, you see you got Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Australia. I also add Great Britain and France because they are traditional naval powers in the South China Sea area. And I include India because India has a lot of interest in the South China Sea as well. And USA. All right. All right. So I'm comparing all the major classes of ships. All right. Aircraft carriers, major amphibious ships, cruisers, destroyers, frigate, littoral combat ships, and corvettes. These are smaller ships. Attack submarines and ballistic missile submarines. I'm not including battleships because no one has battleships anymore. All right. I'm not including piddly ships like tugboats and minesweepers. I mean, minesweepers perform an important function, but what else? Replenishment ships, things like that. I'm not including. Right. These are all the major combatants right here. So you can't attack this. Oh, he's leaving out. I'm not leaving out squat. All right. So here's the total. Here's China. So for aircraft carriers, it's 22-2. And 11 of the U.S. carriers are super carriers. The last of which is now the Ford class, which is a very, very advanced carrier. Electromagnetic catapults, for example. All right. China's two aircraft carriers are based on Russian. One is a Russian hull, Admiral Kuznetsov or whatever it is, Kuznetsov class carrier, and then the second one is a modification of the Admiral Kuznetsov carrier. So they're both crappy Russian designs. All right. First one can only carry 24 planes. Modified one can carry about 40 planes. Compare that to 90 aircraft in each super carrier here. Also with four launch catapults. They don't have a single launch catapult in these. They got a ramp, jump ramp. All right, major amphibious ships, 58-9. Cruisers, 22-3. Destroyers, 150-31. The smaller ships, 216-104. Attack submarines, 144-65. Ballistic missile submarines, 27-7. It's not going to come to this. Those are nuclear weapon missiles. All right. So I want to clarify certain things. When I say major amphibious ships, it's greater than 10,000 tons displacement. And then I want to compare USA to China. So we compare the totals, but let's take a look at USA versus China alone. I hear the media saying, oh, China's got a bigger navy than the USA. Well, in terms of bean count numbers, yeah. We got 11 super carriers. They got 2 crappy Russian carriers. We got 36 amphibious ships. They got 9. We got 22 cruisers. They got 3. We got 70 destroyers. They got 31. Here's where they have the advantage, only in this category. 23. We got 23 smaller ships. They have 104. Right, so they emphasize these smaller ships. But these smaller ships have limited capability. All right. We have 56 nuclear-powered attack submarines. They have 65, but only 9 of their submarines are nuclear-powered. Right? This is huge. Right? Nuclear-powered submarines have great advantage over diesel boats, right? In terms of endurance underwater, speed underwater, and let's see. All right, we got 18 nukes, nuclear ballistic missile submarines. They got 7. All right. All right, so both Chinese aircraft carriers are modified versions of Admiral Kuznetsov carrier. China is building a 3rd carrier, but USA is building more Ford-class carriers. We got 4 more set to be built. 1 is being built right now, right? China's aircraft carrier capable plane is a J-15 Flying Shark. And it is essentially an Su-33, which is a naval version of the Su-27, right? And we know basically the proven failure record of Russian aircraft, right, compared to American aircraft, and typically Russian aircraft are highly maneuverable, but they lack quality avionics. All right, so most of the Chinese subs are diesel, and they're notoriously noisy. That's huge. That's a key advantage. U.S. subs are quiet, right? They're much stealthier. All right, so last thing I want to say is there's existing alliances already. There's a 4-way alliance between USA, Australia, Japan, and India. They form the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. And there's a new alliance, USA, Australia, UK, which forms a AUKUS alliance. All right, so this section right here, it deals with expected liar attacks. I know the liars are going to attack. They're going to try to make up some wormy-ass bullshit lying attack. You always do. They're always proven wrong when it comes to my research. That doesn't stop all the idiots from believing it every single damn time. I'm not going to cover all this. So you can just pause it and read through this if you want. I'm moving on. 3. China's naval forces would be vastly overmatched in both quantity and quality of ships. So the media hypes up the number of Chinese warships, but ignores the fact that a large proportion are smaller frigates and corvettes. Also, the media ignores differences in warship capabilities, like supercarriers, and the quality of weapon systems, sensors, data link, electronic warfare, and defensive systems, right? And as a general rule, U.S. technology dominates. U.S. technology is far superior to anyone else, all right? And technology wins the day in warfare today. All right, so The plan, or the People's Liberation Army Navy, that's the communist Chinese Navy, basically, has never fought a major naval engagement, never, and has been rapidly assembled with the vast majority of its ships being commissioned after 2010. All right, so they're scrambling. I mean, the scramble started right around 2000. Right, that's when they started actually making money as a nation. Their economy started taking off. Right, and they started building up their navy. Right, it really took off further after 2010. Now, this means that the plan is short on tradition, experience, and possibly training, and therefore could be overwhelmed in a complex warfare environment, right? Which is exactly what the USA is good at doing, right? One example is a tradition of Colonel Boyd here. Here's Colonel Boyd. Here's a younger picture when he was a fighter pilot, all right? He's well known for being the key contributor to the F-15 fighter project, which, as you know, became super successful and has 104 victories to no losses, right? But he's also well known for his ideas on what's called the OODA loop, right? Observation, orientation, decision making, and action, right? But a key part of that is the understanding that what's critical is observation, right? And so he also emphasized the idea that you got to jam a spear in the eye of the Cyclops, right? Take out their sensors. So if U.S. goes to war with China, what's U.S. going to emphasize first and foremost? Taking out their C4 ISR, you know, communications, command and control, computers, early warning, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Right? All right. Including satellites. We should be focusing also on taking out the satellites. All right. And you want to hit them with multiple types of weapons from multiple sources: air, surface, underwater, land sources, you name it. Right? And USA's good at that. Like in the first Gulf War. You just overwhelm them. Blind them right away. Then you pick them off. All right. People think that China's going to have an easy time with that. Man, USA is good at overwhelming your capabilities. All right. Plus, China's 3 armed clashes in the South China Sea have all been small. 1974, they had a clash between 2 Chinese minesweepers, 2 sub-chasers. Oh, big deal. They fought 3 Vietnamese frigates and 1 corvette. Wow. Boy, that's like Lady Gulf. Or like Trafalgar. Right? Or like Jutland. Wow. My ass. 1988, 3 Chinese frigates fought 2 Vietnamese LSTs and 2 armed transports. Wow. And then in 2005, Chinese fishing boats attacked Vietnamese fishing boats. Probably with AK-47s. Wow. Those measly engagements are a far cry from going toe-to-toe with the U.S. Navy, combined with other navies listed above. Right? All right. So now hitting China with UN sanctions would be problematic because China is a permanent member of the UN Security Council, which gives them veto power. Right? So they're just going to veto anything that goes against them. But USA and EU sanctions, however, are entirely possible and highly probable. For example, USA is currently enforcing 36 sanctions, mostly for aggressions. All right. So see the list in the footnote below. Here's the 36 sanctions. All right. USA sanctions all the time. So you know, if China does some aggressive acts that exceeds the threshold, USA is going to slap sanctions on them. Hell, we already have some sanctions on China already. Down here somewhere. There's some China sanctions somewhere. Yeah, we got some sanctions on China already. All right. So U.S. sanctions that crippled Iran's economy. U.S. and EU sanctions in 2014 devastated Russia's economy. Right? Naval blockade. The flagrant act of war would make China a pariah, resulting in diplomatic isolation, possible boycotts of Chinese goods. Perhaps they could be organized on an international scale, or even formal embargoes against China. Chinese companies could also be shunned, losing business opportunities. Some might argue that sanctions, boycotts, and embargoes would disrupt supply chains, but a Chinese maritime blockade would do far worse. Plus, companies from other nations would offer competitive prices. Some might argue that sanctions could be inflationary, but sanctions could selectively target specific sectors and companies to minimize adverse impact to us while maximizing hurt on China. The naval blockade would threaten Russia, especially their plans for liquid natural gas terminals in Vladivostok and on Sakhalin Island, which means liquid natural gas carrier ships, right, could be blockaded. This, combined with China's recent border aggressions, China's got a number of border aggressions, may force Russian military buildup in the east, posing a security threat to China, which would be anti-strategic on China's part. Just making more problems for themselves. Now, lastly, a Chinese military defeat or back down from a standoff could have domestic political blowback costs for Xi Jinping. So here's a review of the blockade costs. 1, it'd be anti-strategic formation of an enemy coalition. 2, naval blockade in China hurts them much more. 3, costly military defeat is likely. 4, costly economic sanctions. 5, possible boycotts and embargoes. 6, lost opportunities for Chinese businesses. 7, diplomatic isolation. 8, increased border tension with Russia. 9, domestic political backfire to Xi Jinping. Conclusion. China won't risk a naval blockade. The costs far exceed possible benefits. Plus, naval blockade is an act of war which China would lose, being outclassed in quantity, quality, and experience. Therefore, China will continue its petty harassments over their unlawful requirements. Other nations should continue to ignore China's baseless restrictions on freedom of navigation because they won't pull the trigger because they stand and lose far more than they can ever hope to gain. It is all bluff and bluster, like a teenager testing his parents to see what he can get away with. I mean, that's what I think China's doing. They're trying to get away with anything they can on the cheap. If they can pressure, if they can intimidate, and push and shove, if they get it, fine, right? But they're not going to cost a big war. They're not going to risk a big war over this. Don't give China an inch because if it came down to an armed confrontation, they'll lose in every way. Finally, who is China to demand that we follow their false interpretations of rules when they don't even follow the rules themselves? For example, they make up their own crap. China follows its own unilateral 9-line claim, right? They don't adhere to international agreements. So final word, blockade is far-fetched. Now, lastly, I want to say, of course, this is going to be attacked. When will it be attacked? 24 hours. They'll wait 24 hours. That is going to be a big bullshit attack. Just make it into a big wave. If everyone's saying it, then it's real. Who's stupid enough to fall for that? Just about everyone? It's social retard reality.